The Sega Mega Drive Mini 2 was just announced the other day, and it looks like a lot of people are pretty excited for this thing. Going back and looking at my video where I discussed the announcement and all the details that we knew about it at that time, there's a lot of positive feedback. But then there was also a few, quite a few, honestly, who were like, hey, like, what's going on? We wanted a Dreamcast Mini, a Saturn Mini. Is this thing even coming out in Europe and the USA and North America? And those questions at that time, there was no answers to. But now with this interview with Mr. Yozuki Akinari, who is a producer of this mini classic hardware for Sega, he did an interview with Famitsu where it answers quite a few of these questions and gives us more information concerning this new version of the Sega Mega Drive Mini. And I found some of this stuff really interesting, so I wanted to go through this interview. It's a quite lengthy interview, so I've only highlighted a few things that I thought were extremely important to discuss. So let's go ahead and take a look, because there's some neat things going on here, I think. So here we go. This interview is fairly recent, but yeah, down here they have on this Famitsu article a bunch of different listings for the pre-orders that are available through the Sega Store and Amazon Japan. Right now, those are the only places that they are available. And there is a collector's edition. We'll take a look at that in a moment. I thought that was pretty interesting. So let's keep it going. There's a nice little picture there of him holding the little Mini. I think that's pretty cool. It's, it's keeping in the same line of the previous version, the scale type of thing it looks like. So essentially they're saying like, how this trend started with Nintendo's classic Mini series and how they were like, we got to do something too, right? If you remember when they first announced this, the Mega Drive Genesis Mini, how At Games jumped into it, and then it was like, no, At Games ain't got nothing to do with it. And I think that was for the better, because the reputation of At Games at that time wasn't so good. So it was nice to find out that Sega was handling it with the M2 doing the emulation. So that was a good thing. But yeah, they're talking about how if they're going to do it, they got to do it properly, and how when the Super Famicom came out, it had 21 pieces of hardware, but the Mega Drive, we had to double it. We put 42. We can't win with the same number of titles, and we have to have a couple surprises to win, right? Because if you remember, Super Nintendo Classic Edition had Star Fox 2, so they were like, we got to get some special stuff on here. And they did. So that was pretty cool. Did you change departments to make the Game Gear Micro? I thought this was interesting because they talk about how it became Sega's policy. Like, we got to continue this mini hardware and other projects in the medium term. So they saw like this stuff as a success, even with the Game Gear Micro, which the Game Gear Micro was only released in Japan. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But I guess it was fairly popular over there. And that they were looking at making the interesting part is that they were looking at making another Game Gear Micro. Like, you remember they had a few versions, and they all came with like 4 games, and then there was the GGLS version. But they were saying when they were looking into it, it was like the costs were going to be 1.5 times higher. So it was like, if we did that and then we sold it at the same price, which I guess maybe they thought was reasonable, they wouldn't make money off of it. So it was just like, we can't continue with this. We can't do another Game Gear Micro, right? And then they do talk about the chip shortages and all that stuff, and how some people would be like, it's what a Sega Saturn Mini. I wanted a Dreamcast Mini, and that they did think about that, but with certain things like Sega Saturn, you can't really get those games to run on the similar type of single board computer that they use. And with the pandemic and all this stuff, the cost was getting extremely high on getting chips and all that kind of stuff to be able to have the power and the necessary components to do Sega Saturn. Just didn't really seem feasible at this time, that they would like to keep it in line with the same pricing that they've been doing. But even then, with the Mega Drive Mini 2, if you've noticed, the price did go up slightly. And that is because of that shortage with the transportation costs and all that kind of stuff. And that's just where it's at. Things are a little bit more expensive. And they're trying to focus on the Japanese market. And that's the one thing I think people were hoping, like, man, I hope we get an announcement for the US and Europe. And I think that may happen. But right now, as he says here, because the Famitsu says, wasn't the Mega Drive Mini a hit overseas more so than it was in Japan, right? So the point is like, hey, you guys sold more in overseas markets versus you did in Japan. But this time, as he states, like, yeah, it did sell many more times in North America and Europe than it did in Japan, but they wanted to focus on the Japanese market. And they are preparing, it says, of course, we are preparing for overseas expansion, but the sales volume is centered on Japan. And even with that, they can't put out as many as they did the last time. If you remember in North America, in the US, when this thing released, I think it was pretty hot. I think a lot of people jumped on it and grabbed one. But it wasn't the same vibe as the NES Classic and Super Nintendo Classic in that you just couldn't find them, right? The Sega Genesis Mini, I see them every great once in a while still. I'll see them in stores and they'll just be there, type of thing. So there was an abundance of stock for the longest time, and it's dwindled down, of course. Like, I can't go everywhere and find them, but every great once in a while, I'll see one like in a Target or something in a case, you know what I mean? Like one straggler type of thing. But, they put out what they thought were going to sell, and they made sure that people could get them and not have to worry about that secondary market. They didn't do the artificial scarcity type stuff, but this time they just cannot produce those numbers. So they're focusing on Japan, and they're looking at, doing a version for other markets as well. But there's just no news concerning that at this time. So let's continue on. Oh, they talk about like how the board, and I thought this was interesting, how the board for the Mega Drive Mini 2, that, looking at it and working with the same team, in this kind of like the scale thing, like, how are we going to do this? And it was like, okay, well, let's do a Mega Drive Mini 2 and do the Model 2 casing, and the board fits in there, right? And the question was like, yeah, if the board didn't fit, would have like the Wonder Mega Mini, or like combining with the Mega Drive and the Mega CD, those consoles, wouldn't have that been kind of an option, right? And he says that that if it couldn't fit, they thought about doing a Mega CD2, putting the board in the Mega CD2, all sorts of different options, but it fit in the Mega Drive 2 model and with that same scale. So that's what they went with. And they talk about partly with the price is that not just with everything going on, but that is a big thing with the transportation costs and chip shortages and just costs going up, but also that the performance of the board is more powerful than the previous version. So that's a good thing. Now, what else do we got? Is there any particular part of the main body of the Mega Drive Mini 2? They're talking about like how it's so tightly packed, but they still wanted to keep it like a toy, like it's a collectible toy thing. You could line it up with your other minis, and they wanted to make sure you could still put the fake cartridges in the slot, that kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of attention to detail here, so they kept that, right? And then they're talking about like the accessories that they sold for the Mega Drive 1, right? The Super 32X, that kind of thing, and how attaching it to this one, there's a gap. So if you buy the Tower Mini 2 set, it comes with the spacers that you need to connect everything to the previous set of just aesthetic add-ons, right? So that's kind of cool that it comes with that. If you're able to get the little extra kits, like they've been sold out on Amazon Japan, they weren't shipping to the US when they were up. So I thought that was kind of cool. A little extra picture here with the expansion slot opening up. That doesn't do anything, just all for aesthetics, but I really like the attention to detail they did here. So let's go ahead and keep scrolling. I love that picture with the cartridge and the fake CD in there. I really hope to be able to get one of these, but if not, it has no real purpose other than looks, so I'm not too crazy concerned about it. I do have my Mega Drive Mini 2 pre-ordered just in case like there isn't an announcement for the US early enough. Like if they're like, oh, it's going to come out like shortly after the Japanese one, I'll get the US one instead. It's a good thing with Amazon Japan. You pre-order something, you can cancel it before it ships, unless it says that you can't. Like, you got to look at that stuff. But with this, it's typically you could cancel it if you change your mind before then. So, and they don't charge you until it ships. So, good thing. Then they're talking about how it just has one controller this time, but you can use the controllers from the previous version, so you'll be able to play 2 players, that kind of thing. And then the other question, in terms of internal functions, is the system that was included with the original Mega Drive Mini, is it going to be the same this time, like with save states and all that stuff? So he states that the basics are followed, that everything that you could do in the original Mega Drive Mini is here, but there's been a couple elements added, and I thought this was kind of cool. So He states how the Mega Drive and the Mega Drive 2 actually sound different, that they're equipped with different sound chips. FM sound source, PSG sound source is the way it's translated here. The balance of the sound was slightly different between the Mega Drive and the Mega Drive 2. This time it's Mega Drive 2, so when you play the game, you want to play with the Mega Drive 2, but I think there are people who say, I like the sound of Mega Drive better, the first model, right? That sound chip. Therefore, we added a function that allows you to choose which way to make the sound. So that's going to be really cool to mess around with and just see what the differences are. For them to be able to emulate, with M2, to emulate the sound variants between the two systems, I think that's cool. So that'll be a neat thing to test out. And, people who are really into this kind of stuff, it's a nice feature to have, right? Oh, and then they do go on to talk about the mode button. I don't think I highlighted anything here, but how they changed like the mode button where you could choose what it does this time. So you could change it to where you press it and the menu screen comes up, or you could you have to hold it for so long, or you could just turn it off type of thing. So there's like a little extra function there. Now, the other thing that I was talking about was this collector's edition, right? The DX pack. So they have it listed here where it's like a collector's edition, right? And it is less listed over here. If you want to take a look, they have a few different editions and the different stuff you could order. I think a lot of this might be just sold out on this page, but the Mega Drive Mini 2 with the tower and the DX pack. So this comes with a couple fake discs to put into the Sega CD, right? Shining Force, and then Mansion of Hidden, whatever, the Butterfly game, I think it is. And then a bunch of cartridges, right? They've only announced 3 of the cartridges, as you can see here, but it looks like there's going to be a bunch more. And this is all going to be in a frame type of thing, like a display. So I think that's pretty cool, right? And you get all this. I'm sure this DX pack, I'm not sure, did it say how much it was, or is it just sold out? Oh, selling price, 30,778 yen. So yeah, that is a little pricey. You're spending, about $300 for this setup here. But for collectors, maybe worth it. I can't, read what this says, but I'm almost assuming that says sold out probably. Yeah, that had to have said sold out because it was grayed out, right? And that says that you can order it. So it looks like that DX pack, either it's not been available. I don't know. Either it's not been available or put up yet, or it's sold out right away type of thing. Talk about the games that have been announced so far. There's going to be 50 games. He talks about how there's not going to be any surprises this time, right? So the one thing is, got to note, 20 of the 50 games that are going to be on here are going to be Sega CD, Mega CD games. So, almost a half of them, not quite a half, but almost a half are going to be Sega CD games. And they haven't announced very many yet, so we don't know everything that's going to come on it. And there's not going to be any 32X games on here, unfortunately. So I think that's pretty much it where I wanted to end it with this video as far as new information that's going on. How they talked about, they had the new versions of Tetris and Darius in the first Mega Drive Mini, but it's just not possible this time, that they can't do something that special this time. But, with the Fantasy Zone, with this version of Fantasy Zone, that's pretty much the bonus, but they're not able to do any other crazy surprises on this one. But they haven't announced all the games, so we don't know exactly what's going on yet with that. Now, if you're interested in grabbing one of these, Amazon Japan did have them listed, and I pre-ordered mine when it was first put up. And a lot of the stuff has been sold out, but the official listing, Amazon sold and shipped, Amazon Japan, I don't know why, but now it says it cannot be shipped to my selected delivery location, so in the US. They may have recently changed that. It may just be a glitch on my side, but if you're interested, check it out and see if it says that for you. I can't say across the board it won't ship to you, but it'll tell you. It'll have that red thing there. If you try to check out, it won't let you type of thing. But when I checked out, it let me, but that was when it first went up. Now it just says can't ship. So take a look if you're interested. As soon as we find out more information, if this thing is going to come out in the US and Europe, sounds like it's likely, but they're focusing on Japan first. We'll talk about it and see what to do with that. So really do appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.